Welcome to the Yunique Mind Podcast. I'm Dr. Yuni, a licensed psychotherapist, founder of Yunique Counseling, and a passionate advocate for mental and emotional wellness. This is your space to explore the transformative power of therapy, with a special focus on demystifying hypnotherapy and healing. Each episode will dive into topics that challenge limiting beliefs, unlock the mind's full potential, and empower you on your journey to self-discovery. So take a nice deep breath, open your mind, and let's get started. We have Linda Baker today, and I want to introduce her. She's wonderful. I've worked with her personally as a hypnotherapist, as well as attended a lot of her workshops. Linda, to maybe just tell us a little bit about your healing journey and your also professional and personal journey.
Dr. Yuni, I'm so happy to be with you today. Thank you for inviting me. And I'll start with kind of my story. And I'll start with that I was always interested in mental health and psychology growing up. And also had a feeling that we have to get to a core of an issue in order for healing it. Anyways, my journey took me to be a psychiatric nurse, and I worked a lot on the youth ward with teenagers and young people, and it just wasn't fulfilling to me. I just saw that we're, giving medication and we're talking about things, but it's really not doing the healing work that I felt drawn to doing and felt like it was possible. And then in 1984, a friend of mine introduced me to Alchemical Hypnotherapy. And I took a 4-day workshop, and that workshop absolutely transformed my life. When I was young, probably about 18, 19 years old, I became anorexic. And if anyone knows about anorexia, which I didn't know at the time and nobody knew at the time, I always say I've been ahead of myself. And eating disorders were not in at that time. And so the doctor just said, oh, you're really too thin, you don't have subcutaneous fat, but nobody knew. But then I was reading a book probably in my early 20s, and it talked about how anorexia was a great form of self-hatred because you're actually slowly killing yourself. And it was a mental illness. And so when I did the work, the alchemical work, I was able to go really, really deep inside and heal my inner child and heal my inner teenager. And it transformed my life. My life would be so different if I hadn't gotten into hypnotherapy, which I knew nothing about at the time. But after that 4-day workshop, I called friends and I just said, well, can I try this on you? I want to just practice. And the results were amazing. Like, I hardly knew what I was doing. It was just a simple workshop. And I saw wonderful things happen. People get in touch with issues from their past that they had been working on for sometimes a long time and had never been able to resolve. And I saw them being resolved. And so I knew I had to study this. And so I went on and studied and taught and co-directed 3 schools in Washington State. And I've taught in California, I've taught in Australia, Japan. I just absolutely love the work.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And as most of us, we have this kind of healing calling. But maybe for those that don't understand what hypnotherapy is, because I think a lot of people have very mixed, ideas about hypnotherapy, that we're mind controlling them and all of these, very a lot of myths about it. Maybe what's a very simple explanation or definition that you could offer the audience of how to explain that?
I really understand people not knowing what it is, because I didn't know what it was when I started. I just thought it's a watch, and you dangle a watch in front of somebody and tell them to cluck like a chicken. I had no idea what it was like.
Right.
And there are different types of hypnotherapy. And some hypnotherapists take people in a very deep trance, and they do read a script and read a program, and they even tell you will not remember this. They're basically putting a program in. That's not at all what I do, not what spiritual hypnotherapy, transformational hypnotherapy is about. It's a medium trance. And so what it does, I tell people it's not anything to be concerned or worried about, or it's connecting yourself to your inner knowledge. And you can know that any way you want. It's like Einstein said, we use about 10% of our mind. Well, where's the other 90%? It's our pool of subconscious. And that knows everything about us. It knows, our past lives or our ancestors. It doesn't even have to be past lives. We carry stuff from our ancestors into our physical body in this lifetime. It knows everything. And that subconscious is connected with our higher self, which is our spirit self. And so in this work, you're just letting your body, like the hypnotherapist will help you to relax, to just relax and let go. So you have access to that information and you remember everything. If I have a client that's particularly nervous about it, I let them know that they're always in control, that they can always open their eyes and leave if they want. No one's ever done that, but
Yeah.
for people to know that I have no control over them, that I see clients like a book. And in this book, the story of your life, there's something in there that's keeping you from being the best that you can be. And so we're just going to go down and explore and see where that is so you can release that. And now I tell people it's like your computer, like a great computer. And if you have this great computer and you're not getting the result you want, you don't throw the computer away, but you might put in a new program, update the software. And that's that's how we are. We're beautiful, wonderful people, but we have a belief inside. There's something that's keeping us from the relationship we desire, from the abundance we desire, from, the type of work we desire. Whatever it is, if you're being held back in your life, in any area of your life, you're just running a poor program, a program that needs to be changed. There's nothing wrong with you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's like computers came out in the 1980s, green screen, right? And I always say, we're still running the 1980s green screen computer in our brain, but now we have AI and fast lightning speed technology. But our parents, everyone is still living that old old programming, and we need to get upgraded, And now we have such high speed technology that we can do it. And it was interesting. We were talking the other day about how, old psychotherapy, how long it takes to have a positive shift and change. But now we're living in a very transformative time where it's lightning speed. We actually can heal and transform ourselves. And we actually are doing the healing. It's not the therapist, it's not us. It's really our higher selves and in us doing the work that really is doing the transforming. And it doesn't have to take forever. I think you were telling me a story about a therapist who has the same clients for 25 years, right? And they're never getting better, right? So we need something different now that is really going to help people take power and control of their lives and really make that positive shift and change. And I think hypnotherapy is that key. It's not, I'm not saying it's that one key. It's just a tool that really is really helping people to really transform their life and to really get to know themselves, right? So I love how you say that.
Yeah, and like you say, it's not the only key, but it is. I've done many different types of energy work and all kinds of things, and I've had, massage and Rolfing and different things for myself personally. And I would not, if I could do one thing in my life, this is what I would do, because it is so personal and it gets to the core. And the beautiful thing about it is it fits with everything. I mean, when I was teaching, we'd have massage therapists or people who are psychic or people, and they all could incorporate this in, because if
Yes.
you're a body worker, you might be you're into the body, and that's where a lot of the information is. But if you don't know how to go deeper and lead someone through their inner child healing or through a past life, through a trauma, you are only able to work so far with them. So combining,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I have to say that, I'm traditionally trained in psychotherapy and all and marriage and family therapy health systems, but even EMDR, all of those particular things didn't do this was kind of the missing piece that was the subconscious going into the subconscious and unconscious to really in the higher self to really get to the root of, what is blocking us from really connecting to um our higher purpose, our soul's purpose. It really was the missing link for me to help my clients really get to the root of the issue. And so I feel like it was like the dominoes all or the puzzle pieces all coming into alignment. I was like, oh wow, okay, this totally makes sense. That I understand now what the big picture is, right? So it was really helpful to me.
And that's really good you say that about being traditionally trained in what you were doing and how this makes such a difference, because I worked with a lot of clients who have gone to therapists and good therapists, and talk therapy definitely has its place. But then people run up into a wall and they feel
Yes.
like they're repeating the same thing. They're not really getting through. And so I would have therapists send their client to me for a session or two so they could break through that wall and get to the core. And then they can take that information and go back to their therapist and continue their work.
And I find that there's, the ego mind always has resistance. I mean, the conscious mind, well, its job is to keep you safe and protected. And so I think, a really good question that a lot of people have is like, how do you tell the difference between your higher self, your higher consciousness, and your ego mind or your ego voice? Because I think it oftentimes gets confusing because we have these internal voices or external voices that kind of conflict. And so sometimes people get confused. What is the truth? Because we have so much information now coming to us. So, and as we say, let's just try to keep it simple, right? To not confuse people because it is so much information now in social media. But yeah, maybe what's an easy way to say, how is this our ego talking? Which we all have an ego. It's not like everyone has, it's not the traditional, like everyone has a big head. It's more our ego voice is to try to help us keep us safe and protected, but it doesn't know that it needs to change or adapt and be flexible. But yeah, what's the difference in our ego and our higher self? Maybe voice or
Yeah,
two.
and we have a lot of voices in our head. We might have a critical voice. We might have our parents speaking to us or whatever. So, yeah, how do you tell? Well, one thing is when you connect with your higher self, and you can also, whatever your belief system is, if your belief system is believing in Jesus or Buddha or, believing in your power animals or your angels or, the divine speaks to us in many, many ways. But when you're connecting with your higher self, with that divine consciousness, it always is loving. It always is supporting. It's never going to give you a critical message or tell you you're not doing a good job. Or so that's one thing. And another thing is if you take a moment to breathe that energy into your body will tell you. Your body. I always tell people the mind can lie, but the body always tells the truth. And if you can
Yes.
breathe it into your body, you'll feel that sense of love and openness and awareness. Um, if you breathe in one of the voices, you think, well, is this voice right? You're going to feel that tightness in your chest or in your belly or something. And it's going to give you the message that no, there's something off here. So that's the
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. No, that is definitely that makes sense because a lot of us have been taught to doubt our body. I mean, or doubt, our mind and our body really. But if the body is tightening up, like it's going into protective stance and then in survival. So I really think that makes sense for most of us. It doesn't feel comfortable. So something is, feeling threatening. So always listen to the body. That's our protective instinct. So that makes sense. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm. So anything um else? Oh, today also this year it's definitely the lunar year, the year of the snake, right? Which is interesting. Because I looked up it's the wood snake. It's the shedding of the old, which is kind of symbolic of transformation, renewal, and letting go of negativity and just being very purposeful and kind of growing and maturing and being in this new energy and light. So yeah, so maybe, a little bit of your work, because I attended one of your workshops this year where you entitled Shedding the Old, uh let's see, what was the name of it? Shedding the Old So We Can Live Free in the Light, I believe it was. Yeah.
Yes.
And so yeah, you want to talk a little bit about maybe what the workshop and what maybe kind of motivated you to do that workshop.
What motivated me to do that, and it was a very spontaneous thing, and just as we came into the new year, looking at the world, and I live in the United States, and so looking at our country, but looking at other countries as well, and what's happening and all of the chaos. And on the outside, it looks like, oh my gosh, this could be a terrible time. But in reality, on the other side, this is a time of huge transformation. And that's why it's really wonderful that this is the year of the snake and the wood snake, because it is about shedding the old. But what happens when you shed the old, or when the butterfly comes out of the cocoon? It's not a really easy process. It takes work, and it might hurt. And maybe the little caterpillar that's coming out is thinking it's dying and something horrible is going to happen. Then it turns into this beautiful butterfly with freedom. And that's what we're doing. And so I always look at things as, the micro and the macro. So what's happening out in the world is happening within us. And this is the time for us to really shed all the old energy that we've been carrying, all this old programming, all these beliefs about ourselves. It's really about asking our soul, our spirit, to come in fully into our bodies, for us to give our best to the world right now. It's a very important time to do that. So that's why I
I
was
totally agree.
inspired to do that workshop. I just
Oh
really,
yeah.
really want to help people as much as I can, because the stuff that we have to shed, it's nothing to be afraid of. It's only old energy that needs to be let go of.
Yeah, and that's really important, I believe, because a lot of people hold on to all of these like old trauma stories, old identities, old programs, and we really have been in that paradigm of what's wrong with us versus like what's right with us, what's the
Yeah.
positive aspects about us, or what is our higher purpose in living here. And I remember one of my clients, um, a couple years ago, were like very offended when I tried to ask them, well, would you know, what would you like to, believe about yourself instead of, this old victim story, and they're like, well, I feel like you're just like wanting me to be like, give up this old story. I'm like, well, how does it benefit you to believe that, to live in these old stories, right? So I think we get really attached to these old stories. It's not that pain was not, you know, um, meaningful, or that it was not painful, or we're not trying to minimize that, but it's also, we've lived through that. It's already done. It's an old energy. It's an old memory. We forget that it is an old memory and we're here now, right? And we really are also, what do we need to learn from that experience to maybe help others, help ourselves to feel empowered as well. So I myself have lived through many abuses, many, experiences. And that's why I do what I do now. I believe it's like I think there's a beautiful saying that you said, that everything that's happened to us is for our soul's lesson. Or how did you say that, Linda? Maybe you say it more eloquently than me.
No, that was pretty well said. It's like every experience in our life is for our highest good, even though
Mhm.
it might feel really awful at the time and we can't see that it's for
Yeah.
your highest good. It always
Mhm.
is. It's always about your soul's growth and helping you to
Yeah.
grow.
Yeah. At the time, you don't understand, why did I have to go through that neglect or that abuse or that experience? But upon reflection, it's helped you to become stronger, to become more knowledgeable, more wise, and to help also understand, like, oh, this is my soul's purpose. I need to go through that so I could help others also to help heal and grow and learn as well. So
Yeah,
it's not for nothing. Yeah.
I was going to say, and along with what you're saying, I come to mind about hypnotherapy that I had sessions on for myself. That was really important for me because, and I think this is important for a lot of people, and especially women, to be caretakers and to hold others, children, family members, friends, or whatever, to and not take care of yourself. And in my family, we took foster kids, teenage foster kids. I worked with teenagers, and I always saw like the good in people, like their potential. And this was very codependent. Although I didn't think of it as being codependent at the time.
Yes.
It was like I could see your potential, so I will give you all my energy. I will do everything for you to help you. But that doesn't help me and that doesn't help the other person. And so finally, I attracted somebody that came to live with us, a young person who was like 18. And he was abusive. He was using drugs. But I kept like, really knew that he could be better than what he was. And it took me down to where I just lost my energy. I thought, I don't know what's going on here. And it was interesting because I thought, I have to break this. And oftentimes, when we're in any kind of relationship, especially like an abusive kind of relationship, or a relationship that we feel that we need to get out of, but we can't get out of, I did past life work with him. And lo and behold, I got into a past life of that he was a child of mine in a past life. And I abandoned him because we were a very, very poor family. And he was like the oldest kid. And so he had to move out before he was ready. And when I healed that, I could let go, and I could let go with love, but I could also get that it's not my responsibility to make him okay, that that's his responsibility. And
Yes.
it was really about loving myself. And that was the lesson I had to learn. And it was a very difficult lesson. My husband's a saint because anybody else would have probably been really upset, but he knew I had to get through this lesson. And
Yeah. And that's a very important lesson. And it's a similar one in my life where I had a 34-year marriage that I knew I should have left years ago, but I didn't because there's a lot of guilt, right? We have karmic guilt and past life that we carry into this life. It's unresolved sometimes that we do feel that we have to rescue or to help or enable these people. For whatever reason, we carry that into this life. And so we do have to work through our own feelings and energy of anger, guilt, shame, whatever that lower frequency of energy is, I believe. And we have to honor those. And it's not oftentimes easy. And there's layers and layers of it, I think, that are kind of rising up. I call it the Shrek analogy of the onion, right? Is where, what you get one layer and like, oh, I thought I dealt with that. Nope, here comes another layer. And so sometimes it takes several sessions. Sometimes one session is it's great, but then here comes another. So but it doesn't take forever like talk therapy. So I feel that it is helpful to understand like, oh, it's okay to let go of these lower survival, I call it energies that we don't have to carry them in the next life and the next life that we, forever. So yeah, thank you for sharing that because I think it's important for us to like, these are the old energies that we've been maybe, passing and, carry on forever and we can kind of energetically cut those cords. I think it's really important.
yeah, and I really don't think talk therapy can do that because,
Okay.
that's why people go who are in abusive relationships go to talk therapy, talk and talk and talk, but they keep going back to the abuser. It's because they have to go deeper in and they have to cut that contract, cut that cord. They have to change that on a very, very deep level.
Yeah. And I'll be doing more podcasts describing what those contracts are, how to redo them, and also kind of doing some hypnotherapy sessions or and practicing on that too, because I think people are very interested in, well, how do we stop those or cut those cords or recontract? Because it's very interesting how that happens. Because sometimes unbeknownst to me, I had actually two clients that came to me that were trying to recontract and they were the same set with the opposite partner and I didn't know that they were but yeah, that actually happens that people are ready to really to let go of that karmic soul contract that's been entangling them for years. And so it's really kind of a beautiful, process. And it's a very gentle but powerful process, as you say. It's not like, we really need to learn to let go with love. Um, one, love for ourselves, and also kind of love for this other person who's really also on their own journey of healing. And it's not easy, right, as you say, because if you have a lot of conflict and anger and between you, it's something that really needs to be healed and repaired. But and this is why I stopped doing traditional couples therapy as well, because it just didn't work. Right? You can talk all day long about your problems, but it never like seems to like clear that energetic dynamic until you really go deep and see, okay, where did this problem come from, right? Where's the root of that?
Yeah, yeah, and I just saw an example of that very recently with a client who was going to talk therapy and really had a deeply wounded inner child and in a lot of anger. And so what the therapist did was they did a process where they could like take that angry energy that felt like this monster within him and put it in a bubble and remove it from him. And he said that, well, that kind of helped because it was out of him and it was a technique. But I knew right away when he told me that you cannot do that. I mean, you can do that for a moment and it may feel better. But whenever we separate from a part of ourselves, that part's going to come back. And when we did the session, that little child had so much anger and hurt and pain. And then when he was able to express that and let that go, then he could bring in his true soul's energy and he could love his little child. And it was a beautiful healing.
Yes. Yeah, oftentimes it is a part of us that we have, maybe rejected or, feels isolated. And so that part is still very angry with us because it doesn't have an inner parent or a protector part, and so they are very isolated and alone still. So that if we've never had really good parents in the outer world, we don't know how to really parent ourselves in the inner world. So they are still kind of lost and alone. And so we call it childhood rescue in hypnotherapy, right? But so sometimes we have to do that several times before it kind of sticks. And then we really feel that inner child really feels secure. But sometimes we've never really understood like how to parent ourselves. So that sometimes takes many, many sessions until that adult part of us can really, or our higher selves can really, nurture that little child. And so the reparenting process, I think, is probably the most important work I think that we can do for ourselves, is to really learn to love and care for ourselves. But that, I think it's ironic how we all struggle so much with that, um, do you kind of see that with your work as well? Like how many people come with wounded children, inner children?
Yeah, it's generally, always that pretty much where things start is in childhood. And even if they start in past life, we would continue that as a child in this life. And it's interesting because I tell clients that imagine you have a little 3-year-old and be aware of the thoughts you think about yourself. Like, oh, you make a mistake at work or you do something. Are you critical of yourself? Whatever you're saying to yourself, you're saying to that little 3-year-old. And is that what you really want to be saying? And some people who have had abuse issues as children and all, they grow up, they have children of their own, and they're so careful to be kind to their children, to be a good parent, but they're very critical about themselves. So think about that. And if you look at what you're saying to yourself, and if you're saying to yourself things that are not kind and loving, it means you need to rescue a little child in there from some age. There's different ages. Like you said, it could be multiple times because it could be multiple ages.
Yep, yep, for sure. Yeah, that's predominantly what a lot of my work is. It's like going to that inner child who's feeling lost and alone and scared, and really soothing and comforting it. And a lot of the traditional therapists are call it nervous system regulation, which I think is really funny because It's like, well, isn't that our inner child who's needing to be soothed and comforted, right? But the technical, term is nervous system regulation now, or I'll also call it somatic body work, which is really funny too, which I think is because like it's our inner child who needs an inner parent, really, that's really loving and caring for it,
And
for
see, I
them.
think what you're saying in about traditional work and all is that people don't really know how to rescue the child. They don't, a lot of people are afraid of the feelings. The client may be afraid of the feelings, and the therapist may be afraid of the feelings. And I remember when I started doing this work, I was still working at the psych hospital, and I sat with a whole group of psychiatrists around the table. I was so excited about this work, and I introduced it to them. And the first question the psychiatrist asked, I'll always remember, was, the insurance companies won't pay for this because they want to see people get better, not worse. And what his perception was in doing this work and getting in touch with your anger, your sadness, you're actually getting worse. But we can give you drugs to suppress that so
Yes.
you can be calm and, not be really alive, but, just keep it down, keep the lid.
Yeah, to numb it out. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's still also kind of the mainstream now, maybe getting a little bit more holistically different, openings up to more holistic options. But yeah, I think that is traditionally what people are saying. You want to just numb it out. If there's a drug, if that drug doesn't work, there's another drug that will make that drug work. Yeah, for sure. And that kind of comes to another thing that was kind of happening now, the psychedelic movement, which is also kind of another drug, maybe that in a some of it is actually, really good because it's starting to open up and, kind of let go of a lot of our fears, kind of creating new neural pathways. I went to the psychedelic conference, last year in Denver, and it was very interesting. But one of the things that I'm noticing, and I think we talked about it yesterday too, was that what I noticed is that people are very spiritual, um, doing what we call spiritual or emotional bypassing, but related to like, well, I'm spiritual. I don't need to do the emotional work. I don't need to do the inner child work and all of that. So maybe, what do you kind of say to that?
Well, the whole thing is, how is your life working? And are you being really authentic? I mean, if your life is working in every area and you feel like everything's great, well, that's wonderful. But how's your body doing? Do you have any illnesses? Do you have aches and pains? Do you get migraines? Do you feel depressed at times? Do you have the relationship that you desire? Do you have, the job that you desire? Do you have the abundance you desire? Where in your life is not working? And if there's something not working, that means you're running a program, you're running something that's keeping you from having that. And a lot of times it is looking at the child, because there are people that really want to avoid that at all costs. I had a friend of mine a long time ago, her brother-in-law had cancer, and she wanted him to come because she said he had an abusive childhood. She just so wanted him to come and see me to do inner child work. And he told her, I would rather die than look at my childhood. And that's very sad, but everybody has a choice. And what I'd like to say to that point is, as Dr. Yuni said, it's a memory. You've lived through the memory. It's the past. So going back to your childhood is not about suffering. It's about freeing yourself so you can be healthy and you can be your full self, who you came to be.
Yeah. And I truly believe that doing this work, especially the hypnotherapy the last couple of years, and Linda, you've been doing it for how many years now?
41 this year.
41, yes. And I truly believe that we cannot really, as a human race, be happy without an inner child, right? Because they are the closest to spirit, I believe. Yeah.
They are. They're our contact with spirit. The other thing about the inner child, like I am 76 now, and a lot of people don't believe it. I have a lot of energy and I really love life. My inner child is great. When you heal, all these people are spending so much money on anti-aging and everything. And I'm
Yeah,
thinking, no, it's like your inner child. When you do your inner child, it's
they
true.
are the life. Yeah.
Energy. Yeah.
Mhm.
You're not suppressing things. You have energy.
Yeah, that is why we also love little babies. We love to be around children
Yeah.
because they're so energetic and vibrant. Yeah, and I'm going to be 54 this year. People are like, "Oh, don't seem 54," but I actually feel much younger now and lighter since I've been doing the inner work, right, and the inner child work. It's like, wow, I didn't know that I could feel this good. I didn't I did it years ago, right? But the timing is now. But yeah,
Yeah, we
it
all do
does
it.
keep us young.
Yeah, I'm living my best life ever. I mean, I am happier and more inner peace and everything in my life now than ever before. So it's
Yes,
lots of big pluses to doing this work.
exactly. And I love the way that you say it. It doesn't have to be hard. It's easy and effortless. It's not like you don't have to put effort, but it is gentle, but it's also powerful. It's also like a relief. It's like, whew, it's so peaceful afterwards too. It's like we didn't know how much we were carrying around until afterwards, right? So yeah, I always encourage everyone, even the spiritual healers. We need spiritual healers, but I believe that we have to do the individual work and also ancestral and intergenerational. We have generational karmic markers that we all have to also work through that our parents passed to us. It's in our cells, our DNA, epigenetically. It's not anybody's fault. I liked your book on karmic getting off the karmic wheel because it taught me that there's no blame in the universe. I think we all are just here doing the best that we can. And it's just time for us to just get off of this old karmic wheel so we can have our dharma, and live the life to the fullest and be, happier, whole, healthier individuals. But also ancestrally, let's talk just a little bit about that too, if you have time.
Yeah.
Because I know that you do a lot of like karmic and ancestral healing, and you're also doing a little bit on workshop on transitioning to the uh, death doula. But um, our ancestors, I believe, also now are coming back, or we're much more connected, I think, spiritually, because of a higher consciousness to the spirit world. And I feel like they are coming back to also help us heal a lot of this karmic energy or clear it. Yeah, what are your maybe experiences and thoughts on that?
Well, that's a huge subject.
Mm.
And I'll say that just earlier today, I had a session where someone had been sexually abused as a child. And part of the session was looking how the father had been sexually abused by his father, the grandfather sexually abused by you could see the line that the sexual abuse carries. And that's what's on the karmic wheel because abuse happens, whatever the abuse is, and it continues. And through our lineage, it continues. And like I was telling this client, I said, but now we have high spiritual technology. This is spiritual technology. It
Yeah,
stops here. Our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents, they lived their lives the best they could and dealt with the issues the way they did. But now we can look at that. And when this person was able to see that and take his own inner child and protect his child and see that, he saw like this light go through all these generations. And
yeah.
all these generations are so thankful. I mean, many
Mhm.
times I've had in sessions where the ancestors will just say, thank you so much for doing this.
Yes.
Uh,
Mhm.
and there is no blame, and it's part of our evolving.
Yes. Yes, because they didn't really have anyone there to do that for them. And I think that is the gratitude that they're having. And um it's healing, the theory is it's all now. There's no past, future, or present. It's like all happening, omniverse, universe. Um, and so in a sense, like when we heal, it does heal, backwards and forwards. So I'm feeling that kind of like, that whole transformation happening all over, right? That unity consciousness, I think, is what the term is now. But it just, I can feel that it's just a transformation happening all over, right? And intergenerationally. And and everyone that's coming to me now is feeling that. It's like their ancestors that are past is also very, almost like very apologetic, genuinely apologetic for
Yes,
all
yes,
of those
yeah,
harms that they've done. And they're having realizations and consciousness as well. Like the
yeah,
spirit, even after they pass, they don't have a body, but they have consciousness. They're aware, like, oh, we fucked up,
yeah,
and we're sorry. Yes.
yeah. Just like the
They
client today,
didn't do the work
the
here.
father had his sitting down with his hands over his face and just crying and saying, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And it's when spirit goes, wherever spirit goes, spirit's learning and developing as well, but also carrying this. And so when we do the work, like you said, that we're setting people free both ways,
Yeah.
backwards and forwards, for any children that come, for any whoever comes.
Lifting the burden. Yeah. Lifting that burden of guilt and shame that was
Yeah.
passed on to them. Yeah. Cutting those cords. So it's a very healing, beautiful moment. Yeah. I love
Yes.
it.
Yeah, it's sacred. I mean, that's why I've been doing this for 41 years. I say I'll do it for as long as I can speak, because
Oh,
it's so powerful. It's so beautiful. It's like
really,
um, it changes people's lives.
definitely. And that's kind of, transitions to kind of the class that you're teaching now, this workshop on helping us free ourselves right now. We can actually do it now. We don't have to wait till we pass over to do
Mhm.
the work. And, if we have the opportunity now to get off this karmic wheel, I think that that's a full circle, right? It's like we can relieve ourselves of all the guilt and the shame and the fear that we came down to do in this body. And we can relieve ourselves of all that before we go back into the spirit world. And I had that experience. You helped me kind of see what was that like after my body leaves my spirit leaves my body yesterday. It was a very beautiful kind of experience. It's just of just pure light and love, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful experience. Like you can't really explain it. It's very like surreal how what it is. It's almost like that feeling of heaven on earth, I guess, is what it is. You can't, and where there's no pain, no shame, no guilt. It's like that void that people talk about, that source energy, a connection, the divine. And
Yeah.
so everyone should be able to experience that, I believe, and but we can in this when we're doing this hypnotherapy work to release all survival energy, right? Do the work now so that you can have that what we call bliss. So I say go ahead and do it. Right?
And like you said about, your experience yesterday, I remember it was like coming home and the welcoming. And, and when we can leave in peace, when we can do, because a lot of people are afraid to cross over because they did things, they have these shames and guilts in their life. But you can do through hypnotherapy to release that. And then you can leave like with a clean slate, you can leave in peace and go to that place where spirit, your loved ones, the past, are waiting for you. They're like really excited for you coming home. It's a positive thing.
Yeah, your family, your tribe, your village, whatever you want to call it. Like, so I'm adopted. I don't know my family roots here, so it's like that's my family, right? And so sometimes people, when we come into this world, we don't have a feeling that we belong or a community, but that going back into the spirit realm, it felt like a sense of belonging, a sense of welcoming home. So um, yeah, it's just a warmth and a welcoming. So that's a good way to describe it.
I was going to
But
say,
yeah,
and you can be certain that whether you're adopted or not adopted, whether you know exactly where your biological parents came from or not, spirit knows, your higher self knows. And so when you leave, you are going to your tribe, you are going to wherever
they'll be
you
welcome.
need to go to be welcomed and loved.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And we all will have that. We come from unity, so consciousness. So. I'll go back to.
Yeah.
So anything else, Linda? Anything else you'd like to share, or like maybe tell people how they can maybe find you and maybe work with you? I don't know if you're taking new clients anymore, but
I do take a few, and I have a website. It's innersourceseattle.com. So InnerSource, INNERSOURCE, Seattle.com. And then I have, books on Amazon, and Soul Contracts is one of my better known ones.
yes,
But
you pick it up because it's a really great book. All your work is really great. If you ever get a chance to work with
thank you
Linda,
so much.
she's really super, and she has a very gentle, sweet voice and very welcoming. Um, you've helped me immensely, and your workshops too are really great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And your work, I think, is really needed out there. So I want to continue the great work that you're doing, and I've learned so much from you as well. So thank you for all you do.
Well, thank you so
Any
much.
last,
And I was
any
going to say,
last
your work is really needed too, because I know you are also excellent. And yeah, and your offering, and even this podcast, it's so important for people to
We need to
get
get the
the material.
hypnotherapy work out there and the
Yeah.
word out there that this is possible. We all can heal and do this work. So, yes. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Much love and gratitude for tuning in to the Yunique Mind Podcast. I hope today's episode gave you new insights and tools to support your healing and wellness journey. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might benefit. You can also reach me via my website at uniquecounseling.com, and that's unique with a Y. Until next time, stay curious, stay mindful, and keep exploring your unique mind. This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. While I am a doctor, PhD, this podcast does not create a doctor-patient relationship, and the information shared should not be considered medical or psychological advice. Always consult a licensed healthcare provider before making any decisions regarding your health.